I want to show one other feature that may come up in your own development that shows how to restore values that have been changed dynamically. You see, the way activities work, when an activity is destroyed and recreated, it's going to go back to its initial state as defined by the XML layout file or by whatever is in the onCreate method, whatever mechanism we use to update the view. Now, at the moment, we've already moved past this stage. I already have one activity starting up a second activity. So the thing I'm going to show you isn't really relevant anymore. So I'm going to switch to the GitHub repository now. Now this GitHub repository will be made available to you as part of the source code for this video course. It's sitting here at github.com/my-last-name, Cousin, K-O-U-S-E-N, cousin like the relative, even though it doesn't look like it. Under the repo name Hello World AS. There's a whole series of branches here that can be required by cloning the repository. Here's the clone URL, and if you have Git on your local machine, you can clone it and use it. Alternatively, there's a download zip, but that would only grab the current branch. But if you didn't have Git, that's pretty much all you could do. I'm using this so that I don't have to constantly write all the code in front of you, although this part right now I think I'm going to illustrate for you. What I have done is that I have loaded this new project, Hello World AS, into my IDE. And down at the bottom here, you can see that there is a Git tag that shows all the individual branches. These are the remote branches, and these are the ones I have checked out locally. When you download it yourself, you'll get the remote branches, and then for each one, you could check it out as a local branch. Like on number 3 here, it says check out as new local branch, and then it would come up as one of these, and it'd be easier to work with locally. Now, I'm going back to this earlier phase here because I don't want there to be a second activity yet so that I can illustrate the problem. Let me show you what I'm doing. So I will run this app right now, and I still have my emulator running. And on the emulator, it pops up the app, and I put in a name, and I say hello, and it says hello, just like you'd expect, like we did before. Now, the interesting part is what happens if I rotate the device. So I did my Control F11 and I rotated the device, and notice that the name here in the text view went back to Hello World. Of course it did. The activity got destroyed and recreated, and when it recreated it, it read the value out of the XML file. That's the initial value inside there, and we hadn't done anything in the code to make it do anything other than that. Now, the value in the text field got preserved. That's an internal Android thing. They do preserve the values of the input fields. But this label, if you will, this text view, which is a label, is initialized from the value in the XML. I would like to make it so that even though I rotated the device, I don't lose that value, the greeting that was in there before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with yet another callback method. This time the callback method is called onSaveInstanceState. So I say I want to override SaveInstanceState. So here is onSaveInstanceState. It's calling super. As an argument, it takes something called a bundle. A bundle is effectively a map of keys and values. The keys are all strings, and the values are basically primitives. Technically, they could be serializables, but really you restrict yourself to strings or dates or things of that nature. Something very simple. You don't put an entire object in this bundle. Now, this is only saving it in memory. This is not preserved between executions of the application. This is just while we're running, when we're switching between activities that may get destroyed and recreated, and we want to keep the value around. So in onSaveInstanceState, I'm going to go outstate.putString. Now you notice there's a whole bunch of puts, all based on different data types. I know I want to put this as a string. I'll call it just greeting, just for a name, and I'll put in the text view .getText, which is a character sequence, and just to be clear, I'll call toString on it so that now I'm saving an actual string into the bundle under the name greeting. So that's the actual display going on at the moment. Now, where do I restore it? Well, you may have noticed during our onCreate method, the onCreate method takes a bundle as an argument. That bundle is called saved instance state. That's the same bundle that I just added a value to. So what I'm going to do after setting up all the views and everything, looking up the two widgets and getting the button and adding the listener to it, let me say if saved instance state is not null, then TextView.put, or rather set text, will be my saved instance state dot get string greeting. So there I'm saying if the save instance state is not null, well, when would it be null? The first time I enter onCreate. The first time I create the application, there's nothing in the bundle. There's not even a bundle to be had. But every subsequent time, if I have saved something in onSave instance state, it will now be available in that bundle. So now that I've added this, let me rerun the app again. And when I run it on the emulator, now it says hello world, and I go Dolly and say hello. It says hello Dolly, and when I rotate the device this time, it still says hello Dolly. Technically, that's not what happened, right? Technically, it lost it. It regenerated the view because, of course, the activity was destroyed during the rotation process. But when it recreated it, after inflating the layout, then it found that we had put a greeting inside the bundle and then restored the greeting from the bundle. So it all happened so fast I didn't really notice it, but there was a process here that allowed you to save values temporarily in memory and then restore them onto the user interface however you want them. So that's a nice little feature to have, this save instance state process. There's also a method, by the way, called onRestore instance state, which is only invoked if save instance state, if the bundle is not null. So that's another alternative to this. I thought I would put this inside the onCreate method because that's often where you see it in practice. But there really is no difference in practice as to which method you might prefer. Feel free to do either one. This one just illustrates going through the onCreate method to restore the value. Now that, again, was not true persistence because that's still in memory. However, I would like to next talk about persistence mechanisms, specifically dealing with the file system, which I'm just going to tell you about, and then using the SQLite database, which I really do want to illustrate in the next section.